So did he get the parts? By the way, part of why I don't want to quit.
I have to leave.
He was amazing. He looked just like that.
Good morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the 56th season of the Utah Shakespeare Festival. My name's Ryan Paul, and for the next little bit, we're going to have our play seminars. Who's been to one of these before? Good. So everyone's familiar with the drill. Today's play seminar is extra special and extra rare. Rarely do we have the opportunity to actually discuss the play with the director and the playwright, mostly because our major playwright's been dead for hundreds of years, and that's a little more challenging. So the way that we're going to
speak for him, however.
What's that?
I'm happy to speak for him.
Yeah, yes. The voice of Shakespeare. Today we're going to do something a little bit different because of the structure. What we have, we're opening tonight a world premiere of How to Fight Loneliness, and we have with us today the director of that production, David Ivers, and the playwright of that production, Neil LaBute, who has done many, many other things. I always appreciate applause before because you never know what's going to happen after, right? So what we'd like to do is spend about an hour talking about loneliness, about the process, anything you want to know about the discussion of how we got here. And then after this discussion, they need to leave at 10. We'll continue with Shakespeare in Love and Treasure Island and Guys and Dolls and those kinds of things that we need, or Midsummer Night's Dream that we'll talk about. So I don't want to take too much time, but I do want to begin. And these are audience-led discussions, so please feel free to, I'll pass the mic to you so we can hear you because we're recording this. But the first question that I want to ask to kind of get us started is really how we got here, the journey of this play, not only in its creation by Neil, but in the play coming to the festival as well, of which David was a big part of.
Hi. So I guess well over a year ago, Chuck, you can help, probably a year and a half ago. Was it 3 years ago? He always yells at me. Just yells at me all the time. Dad Chuck. A year and a half ago, 3 years ago, at some point a while ago, Chuck received this script from his once student and prolific playwright, Neil LaBute, and came into my office and yelled at me that I need to read this script and to see what I thought about it, and that he thought it was something that would be up my alley. I don't know if I should take that how I should take that. But so I put it in my backpack and I kind of walked around with it without reading and feeling like I'd had this pot of gold in my backpack, that I had an unproduced Neil LaBute play And I finally cracked it open on a flight from Cedar City to Salt Lake on the way to do some business for the festival. And I was sort of jaw dropped by it. I couldn't believe how personal it felt and how its sort of unity of action was really sound, and that it was character driven and muscular and surprising, and had his signature richness of language, which I felt was in keeping with the richness and muscularity of the language that the festival uses to produce dead playwrights. So I came back and I told Chuck, we got to do it. And we were also in the process, Brian and myself, of creating a new play program. And so then the sort of trajectory of that all took off based on Neil's play and another couple of plays that we were looking at, one of which will be in next season. And we just said, we got to do it. And so we put some funds together to workshop it, as you may know, last summer. And Neil dove in without really knowing us at all, just kind of said, you know, based on my relationship with Chuck, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you know, go for it. And he's kind of been amazing in this go for it kind of way all along.
Why are we qualifying, kind of?
Yeah, kind of is because it should be qualified.
Amazing. Why is it kind of?
It will stop being kind of when you put that last cut in that I want you to put in tonight. Then it'll be fully amazing. No, so it's been a really great collaborative process. I think we were able to keep our cast intact, who are very committed to the production, and we put it through this sort of development scheme that we're still trying to create and learn from and figure out what we need to develop these plays. And here we are, about to open tonight. Anything else to add to that?
That's good. No, I think that covers it.
All right, so let's open it up. Let's start with any questions right here.
Button or anything on this? Okay. I went to the preview last night, and it was amazing, first off. And my question is really technical, and the actors aren't here to answer, but David, you act, so you can answer this. The level of emotion that they had to succumb to pull this off was incredible. And it's the only way this kind of play could work, and it worked. So bravo on that. But how then do you shut that off and get back to center when you go home at night and dream Cedar City sweet dreams? Can you do that?
Yeah, I think Tate answers that question when he says the trick is there is no trick. You can't. Yeah. I mean, you can. I was just saying, it's like I directed it, but we've all been living with it, and you know, it's hard. They're you know, everyone has a different way of handling that stuff, but the decompression time is sort of tricky, and you know, it's where some of the personal demons come out, I think, in artists, you know, because you're expressing all that and it's real, and it's why the wine store's open. Sometimes.
Thank you. It was great last
night. During the play, I thought how Fred must really love you guys because, you know, we were neighbors with his sister who died of cancer. And I was thinking of her and her wasting away through that process and the effect, you know, it personally had on us to see that and then to remember that through this play. So it's a very hard play to watch in some ways.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I do thank you because it sounds like we were somewhat accurate, and that's always difficult, you know, when you haven't. It's not. You said it feels personal when you read it, but it really wasn't. It was a story that came to me, and I told it, and so no more personal than probably many of the other plays I've written. You know, I mean, some part of you filters in and all of that, but I'm not really autobiographical in a particular way. You know, I don't set out to write that story about my parents when they first met each other and should have run the other way. Or, you know, here's a story of my brother when he was in the Marines or that thing. I really don't do that kind of playwriting. So, and yet things do happen. You know, you write something, you think 180 degrees from where you are, and someone says, wow, you really captured your dad. And I'm like, really? I didn't see it, but they could see it from the outside. So that sort of does happen. But in this case, I've had people in my immediate family pass away, and certainly, and one or two pass away from cancer, but I was not intimate with it. And so that's just part of the, the search you make in terms of research and just the general sense of what it is to be with someone and be caught in that horrible kind of cycle of not being able to really do much other than be there, which is kind of where Brad is stuck.
Right here.
Good morning. I saw the reading last summer, and my initial reaction was that I was absolutely furious with you. And then I was determined to come here to see to see the preview when David was going to be here. I didn't know you were going to be here. I'm delighted that you're here. I am a cancer patient. I have stage 4 ovarian cancer, and I am facing these exact issues. My husband and I have talked about it, and there are a couple of things in the play that don't ring true for me. First of all, Jodi's situation rings very true to me. I can see, even though she's bouncing around the stage, looking very healthy, I look very healthy, but I know what's coming. And she nailed it. She really nailed it. There's only one aspect of it that I think is lacking, and that is the killer uncertainty. It just about drives you nuts, because you get a little bit better and you think, oh, I'm going to keep going, and then something happens and you feel terrible again, and you're like, oh, is it time? I have spent quite a bit of time trying to push through legislation in Utah to allow physician-assisted dying, and with absolute no success whatsoever. It's not going to happen here for a long time, I don't think. Another thing that didn't quite ring true is the consistent.
Sorry, what was the part that didn't ring true? The uncertainty?
Yeah, well, it isn't that it didn't ring true. It's that's an aspect that isn't mentioned. I mean, I'm listening very carefully to her, and
but I think
okay,
it does actually bring up the she gets better and she thinks she's going to.
Right. Well, I did relate to her very strongly. The relationship between her and Brad, I just wish we could have seen the tenderness and empathy that Brad felt that induced him to make the call and bring in Tate. I mean, he obviously has it. And then my last one is this most serious. Never have I considered asking someone to kill me violently like that. I have thought about all kinds of ways, and there are books about it and everything, but violence is not in there. And I was so disturbed when the way it ended was he runs her over with a car. We're trying to find ways. I'm searching for something that is safe. Safe. How does that go? Huh? Okay.
Good luck with that.
I don't want my family implicated. I want my family there. My family, I'm lucky my family's very supportive. But I just wish you would figure out a way for Tate to help her die without running her over with a car. That just was so disturbing to me. So I'm asking you, why did you choose that particular mode?
Drama, the sake of drama, which is not a cop-out. It's just a choice. I could have gone any number of ways, and that would just be a different play. In the same way, I could have spent a lot more time showing you Brad and Jodi in a happy place. What I found along the way is happiness makes for shitty drama. Drama is conflict, people in conflict. And I walked away feeling I was certain that Brad was in love with her and would do almost anything for her. He couldn't bring himself to do that. But I believed that he, at some point in their history, was able to go and talk to Tate and make that step, just like inviting him over and then going, you know what, I'm not ready for this, I can't do it yet. Everybody's, they go through these ups and downs of that. So for me, that was what was important and kind of always important in drama, is that it's just possible, not probable, not this is what everyone would do, this is what most people would do. I have to, and people are very good psychologically these days. Only like a generation ago, my parents, psychologically, they were not as adept as most people today who have just spent time watching everyone from Dr. Phil onward, discuss problems, issues, and they were problems when you talked about psychology. You could be sick physically, but you couldn't be mentally sick, or you were crazy. That was just sort of it, but today people are very good with, psychological profiles. So I have to be a psychologist about people who don't exist. I have to create a believable psychological pattern. But again, it only has to be true for that character. That you can go, I can believe that that person believes it, or could make that choice, or do that thing. So that's the kind of line that I worry about, because people have told this story before, and will tell it again, and certainly have told many relationship stories, and I've written a bunch of them. And so you have to find that place that's different. I think that's the currency that I exchange with an audience, that I'm going to take you on a different trip than you've been on before. So that's not the reason to have him use a car. It's because it's the choice that he makes. In his limited worldview, this is something that I think will actually be quick and, and take care of this problem that you've come to me with. I'm not a doctor. He wonders, why did you come to me? Why would you pick this guy? Because you have the capacity, it seems, to be able to follow through with this. And she doesn't ask for a violent death. She's like, in fact, I would like to not have pain. But she does ask him for help because she believes that he will be able to do it, whatever it is that he chooses to do. So, yeah, I could have picked any number of other things. But in terms of the reveals that came from scene to scene, what he was going to do, what happened in the autopsy, those and certain deaths would have probably led to, less chance of there being an autopsy, or so there was just certain choices I made, and they're just subjective. I don't think of them as right or wrong. They're just the choice I made. Given this material to somebody else, you would have a completely different play. Slightly not as good, but no, you would just have another play, and that's the thing. You just give that raw material, and that's the way it would unfold. So those were just choices that I made to tell the story in the most dramatic way I could.
I'm actually comforted by the fact that Brad shares your horror about how it's done. I think without that, we'd be in a whole nother place. But since he is so terrified and torn at the same violence, that does something to me,
She also does talk about, any number of other things that she's been driven to think about, things that she normally wouldn't: jumping off a roof, driving into a car, putting an air bubble into her blood. Things that most people don't really want to consider, even if they are considering suicide. They're like, hottest bath possible, I'm going to go out like a Roman, hope to do this in my sleep, take some pills and I'll fall asleep, whatever, freeze to death, I'll go in the car and just fall asleep. Most people aren't looking for, the most violent way to die. That's often a signal of the pain that they're in, mentally or physically or whatever it is. So she does mention a few that are pretty bad as well. But this one I'm with you in. It's a tough one. And I think you're right that Brad then does stand in for most everyone else, going, I'm sorry, you did what? That's bad.
We're right here.
I had a lot of trouble connecting the title of the play to the realities of the play. I must be missing something. Did you consider alternate titles, or am I just being dense? And it's quite likely that's the case. I'm just being dense.
Could be both.
Absolutely.
Not undersell that possibility. No, I don't think there's a density quality to it. They do mention there's a certain passage about loneliness, how you deal with it, how you fight it, in the third section of the play. But it was a title that I'd heard from a song that I really liked, and so I didn't just shove it in there thinking I'm just going to make it work. But it just spoke to me and felt right for the play, because I think they were all, lonely people in their own kind of circles, even though there's a couple there. I think this thing has kind of driven them apart and made them live kind of solo lives, and so I thought that spoke to something that everybody deals with at some point. How do you deal with the pain of loss, of losing somebody, and or being alone, or like Tate talks about when he was a young man, that he was just a lonely kid. He was, it's not a life or death situation for most people. Some people, they get pretty close probably when you get frightfully lonely, but it's sort of a universal that people go through. So it spoke to me in terms of not just the specifics of what they're dealing with in the play, but generally what they're dealing with.
I was very involved in the play, and I thought it was very interesting, but I felt that the fact that she was pregnant was a superfluous situation there. First of all, somebody who has gone through chemotherapy and through radiation is not going to become pregnant. Very often their menstrual cycle will have ceased, and this pregnancy was not necessary for the power of the play at all. And it's kind of late to change things. I know it's your child, but I really felt that made it unreal.
I'm kidding. We probably won't change it. I'm glad you didn't say it's impossible, because it is not impossible for someone who's gone through remission and to be pregnant. So again, for me, it's the world of the possible. And it was a revelation. I think it was something that they really wanted in their marriage, and to have it happen at a time like this, and then her not to tell him, because in fact it would make him work even harder to keep her alive, made for good drama as far as I was concerned. And of course, then they've got to check medically to make sure that is a possibility, and in fact it is. And so therefore that made sense to me. But again, I wouldn't argue with you. I could go in and take it out, and an audience wouldn't know it. But that's the same with any passage. I could have taken any one element out, and you wouldn't know if it wasn't there. So to say it's not necessary is subjective, and I believe it because you believe it, but I don't believe it as right for the play. For my taste, it's right for the play. But I'm sorry it didn't work for you.
We're over here.
Okay. Hey.
Morning. I was just curious. So I know this was workshopped a year ago, and it's had the same creative team. I don't know about the actors, but I know it's had you guys both there for more than a year, which I feel like probably isn't all that common in the professional theater world to have it develop that long. So I was just wondering how it has evolved since that you got that initial draft and you did that workshopping last summer, and you've had a year to sort of tweak it and finesse it, and how it's changed from a year ago to the version that we saw last night.
Sure. Same cast. I should have been clear. We didn't sort of live together for a year and work on it every day. The year really was about a kind of marinating in it. I mean, we had hoped that we would be able to go to New York or somewhere to have another pass at it before we started rehearsal, but due to schedules and work and everyone's careers, we couldn't get it together. So as we got closer to rehearsal, stuff started cooking. Neil wrote some more, added some passages for Brad and Jody that I think are powerful. And really I guess, kind of hard work of adjustments and questions started when we started rehearsal again. And everyone had come back to it, having thought about it for that amount of time. So it was a really fervent, kind of incubator for more discussion. And I think we were almost daily, Neil and myself, either texting or calling or emailing about, hey, what about this? What do you think about this? And really, we put cuts and new words in yesterday before the preview. Past and today. We got some more today. So we're learning. I mean, I would love to do this for another week at least, to hear thoughts, weigh them, look at, you change one little thought, one little moment, and it says something else, and it's nice to be able to explore that with the guy who wrote it, to figure out what he meant. It's so funny. There's this tiny word in the play as an example of sort of the process. There's this word. Jody says, "Why me? Why are you doing this? Why do you want to kill me?" And Tate says, "Because of," and then there's this word after this ellipsis, God, ellipsis. And we're in rehearsal, and Corey's playing the line, "Because of God." And Neil comes and he goes, "No, that's just because of God." So that's the kind of investigation that we're doing. Wouldn't it be great if Shakespeare was alive? In sooth. Now, when you said sooth here, so that's what we could be doing for another 3 weeks. And so that changed last night. For the first time, Corey was like, "Okay, it's not about God. It's about,
We're over right here.
Neil, I'm fascinated by the process. I'd like kind of a timeline from your perspective of how this has gone and how much of your time you've put into this at various stages, because you're a pretty prolific guy. And I know you haven't spent 3 years focused on this. So how does this work from the playwright's perspective?
There's no recipe, for it. There's no, this is how much time it takes. It takes the time that it takes. Each one's different. It's, I know people who don't do any work on their plays. Once the play is actually into the hands of a company that has agreed to do it, that author may have done some rewriting before they turned it in, but they essentially feel that it's done, and I don't want anything changed. I've never been one to be like that. I never felt I was so clever, that it came out just perfectly. I tend to work on these things even after they're performed and published. If I go on to another production, then it's sort of like starting over, and something that worked here might not work elsewhere with another cast. Another cast will have just as many questions, and maybe some of the questions that you've brought up, and it makes you look at it again a year later, 5 years later, whatever. So the process, I always think of it as never finished. It's finished for now. There'll be a moment where I walk away here and say, that's the show. That's the show. We don't want to keep forcing the actors to refiguring, and especially if we're not here. It's time to kind of freeze the show and say, that's the show that we're putting on. But I will consider to ruminate about it, and we're thinking of a life beyond here for it. So we're already talking about those. I was, just before we started, I was like, I did a pass on something that I don't think we should take out here, but I think we should look at, that sort of thing. But in terms of actual man hours, I write pretty fast when I write, but I tend to think about things a lot. I don't just write every day. I'm not a person who there are people I know who get up at 6 in the morning and they write till 10. They take a break and then they write in the afternoon, or they don't, or they wear the same clothes, they eat the same food. They're just OCD, weird, but it works for them. So why should I care? I have been lucky enough to be able to write most hours of the day or night or whenever, because I do other things, and so I have to. So it's not like I worked an hour a day or an hour a week on this play. It was when I turned my attention to it, when it got back into my head, I went, yeah, I'm going to go look at that thing, and go look at it. And that makes you look at the whole thing, and you start to dismantle it and make sure it works. And so I can't say that it took this many hours or this long, but since, from when we were able to hear it with real actors rather than myself, quoting stuff in the mirror, or trying to do a speech and going, oh boy, it helped immensely to have it in front of just a listening audience last year, and to hear actors start to make those connections. And writers by nature, I think, tend to overwrite. They tend to overwrite and underwrite at the same time. They overwrite the play, and yet sometimes they underwrite the story or the characters, not because they haven't done the work, but because it's in their head and they think they've said it because they know the story so well. And they'll say, well, no, that's because of, and you're like, where is that in the play? The page, and they're like, well, it's supposed to be right here. And they're like, oh, I didn't put that in, did I? Yeah, no, you didn't. And sometimes that's just the case. And so I think, it's amazing what an actor can do, picture in 1,000 words, that sort of thing. You write all this stuff about how much pain I'm in and this and that, and I just wish this girl walks on stage, and in 3 minutes you go, I get it. We can take out the other 5 speeches about how much pain you're in, right? Because I know you are. Let's get on with it. So there's just several stages. Everybody's an audience. The audience, the circle just keeps growing. Chuck was the audience, and then he passed it on, and then David, when he got down to finally reading the damn thing on a flight from St. George to, what was it?
Can't wait to see how it ends tonight.
On the 7-minute flight from here to Salt Lake. He always challenges me to do rewrites. I mean, why shouldn't he? Why shouldn't you push to make it the best that it can be? It can always be funnier or more dramatic or more sad or whatever it is that it's supposed to be. You just have to kind of keep at it. And so that's sort of the magic, is that writers often, when they sit with you and they want to know they want to know the secret. They want to know how do you do it? How do you make it? How do you write a play? How do you do it? And there's no one way. That's the beauty of it, and that's the thing that drives you crazy. It's not like going to law school. Like, you go to school, you go to law school, you pass the bar, you're a lawyer. You could be a good lawyer, you could be a shitty lawyer, but you're a lawyer. You can write a play and you can, and it's not great. It's not just, and you go, oh yeah, but it's true. It happened to me. Sorry, that doesn't mean it's interesting. It doesn't mean it's a play. Just because it's true. It's just, and somebody else, it's not true at all, and they write this amazing thing, and you go, how did you know how to write about these 2 75-year-olds? Yeah, and you're just like, how did you know to write about, a young girl and an old man? Who are you? And you're just this person who filters this stuff through and feels the human experience, and that's what it is. So I can't say how much time I put in, but I put in what I felt like I needed to, and then again you see it in rehearsal, and you have a new idea, and then some of the new stuff is too much now.
When I see this in New York, it's going to probably change.
Sure.
We're right here now.
I have a couple questions. One, my kids want to know if you're going to readdress and go back and do some more Hell on Wheels. They love that series.
There is no more Hell on Wheels.
Oh, that's what
Hell
they're
on Wheels
afraid
is
of.
done. Sadly, it ended after season 5.
Well, they knew that, and they loved it. And they
I loved it too. I grew up loving westerns, and it was a pleasure to. It was the thing that really introduced me to television, because I hadn't thought about doing any TV, and I got the offer to do it, and I thought, man, you're never going to get another western. When do they come by? So I went and did it, and I ended up doing about 5 or 6 of them. So
it was
a lot of fun.
Wonderful. We were discussing last night, did Jody know that she was pregnant? And we loved the part where she put on the headset and walked toward the light, the symbolism of that. So
a lot of things, I mean, you can ask me that and you can ask him that, and it might be 2 different answers. I often write things that don't necessarily have the answer to that. That allows an actor to make a choice, or an audience to make a choice, rather than a definitive answer about that. Brad's certainly searching for the answer. He's not sure. He's kind of haunted by it. He's certain she knew, but as Tate points out, you don't know shit. You think you know, but you don't know. There's a line that she says in the second scene, which could certainly mean she just, what's the line that she said?
And this time with the.
And this time with the. That could mean with the pregnancy. It could mean a bunch of things. But I certainly placed that in there as the possible retroactive arrow that you could go, no, she said that, and then she stopped herself from saying that. But that just allows some flexibility for an actor. For me to really choose that is less interesting, I think. I mean, you have to choose certain things. There are things you have to make a choice about. I don't know if he hit her with the car or not. I mean, that would be crazy, right? So you wouldn't have a play. But certain choices along the way, I actually love it when characters or actors have secrets in plays that I don't know the answer to. I've done a couple of plays where people things that they whispered to each other or that sort of thing. And I said, I don't want to know what you say to him. It's not for me to know because the audience doesn't get to know. So why should I get to know? It's a secret. You two keep it, but honor it, keep it the same thing. Don't just be silly and don't just like go, boy, the audience sucks tonight. Every night commit to it and tell him that thing. But I don't want to know what the thing is. I want to try and see if I can figure out what that thing is. So that mystery, I like mystery in plays. I like mysteries. I like, the beauty of mysteries. And I've tried to write even a couple at this point. The beauty of a mystery is it's a win-win. You don't figure it out, you love it. You figure it out, you love it. How can you go wrong? I read Agatha Christie, I'm like, oh no, it's I was right. And right, fuck, I was wrong. I love it equally, So mystery is kind of a great thing in drama. The unknown is one of those things I think most people are, it sparks their imagination. So why shouldn't you, in this age where there's so much out there to watch and read and see and to leave things to ponder for, you to wrestle with the morality, the psychology, the choices, the accuracy of, of the medicinal, elements of the piece. That's great. It gives you something to take away from just the hour and hopefully at some point 45 minutes that we spend with you. It's great if a play can live beyond, till tomorrow or next week, and you go, I wonder if that's, what an amazing thing that it had any shelf life to it. So that's I like that sort of thing. So a lot of times I wouldn't want to answer those questions.
There's a bit of the thriller in this play, which I love, and those unanswered questions, to me, are the mark of the foundation of what makes a good play. And so much so that I think if you made a series of decisions today based on seeing it last night that you were pretty solid about, and you went to see the show tonight, you would confirm. The play would confirm for you all the things you feel about, did she know she was pregnant? And you have an answer to it. You'd be able to watch the play and say, oh yeah, from that point of view, yes. And from that point of view, no, depending on what you feel, because there's enough ambiguity in the play that it supports that. And I think that's what keeps it moving forward and sort of alive, is that it doesn't attempt right away to answer every single question for character or for narrative. So
Right back here.
Hey guys. I just want to say I'm a big fan of both of you. I love your work. And
Thank
Neil,
you.
I really appreciate your in your published plays, your prefaces, because that's always like one of my favorite things. So thank you for that insight into your mind.
Thank you.
Yeah. For your collaboration, when do you guys fight for stuff you really love, and when do you compromise? Does it feel like you're kind of a hive mind, or are there times when it's more difficult than that?
What was the last part you said? The hive mind?
Like a hive mind? Yeah. Do you feel like you're on the same page, or were there
Tied
times
that
when you
into the
had to
Utah
fight
thing? That
for
was
stuff?
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice job.
And Facebook.
Very good. We would on this. We would probably both again differ in some ways. We would agree and differ because there's a point where is it when you get what you asked for? Is that winning? Is that right? Is it? I guess that's the kind of the general question of it, because it's not like I think about pick your battles or that sort of thing. Sometimes you find yourself in a situation where you're like, yeah, from what I understand with working with this company or studio or this person, it is a bit of a pick your battle thing because they seem to like conflict, whereas I like my conflict on the page. I love what I do, and so I don't love wasting any of the time in conflict with somebody. And I don't think very often that has helped the situation. You get through the conflict and you still have the issue, so I'm quick to keep my temper most times. I have one, but it's really long fuse. But I think you just have to be open. The idea with this is collaboration. The idea is that there are other people there, and you've hopefully gotten into a situation with. It often trickles down from where the director is because they are often the person hiring all these other elements. But you want to invest in what you've got in front of you, all those minds. I hate to think that I would sit back and think I just know better. There are playwrights I know who've actually said, I've a very famous one who passed away recently, talked about not wanting to have his plays changed. And he's just basically said, I'm sorry, but I know better. That with my work, I know better than you know about it. So that puts you in a very difficult place. We do want to serve the play, but it's service through for me, a collaboration, not like a slave situation where I'm like, just whatever I can do to, make you happy. Whatever you've written is it's a script. It's not scripture. It never is. Sometimes they think it's like, that, but it's not. And it's, so if David has come with a list of, I never felt there were demands. There were questions, or very cleverly concealed demands under the guise of a question, so I was duped constantly, I guess is what it is now.
It's a director's work, my friend.
Yeah, your work here is done. But I was gullible enough to think that, this is we're all trying to make this better. It's not really my play. I mean, it is my play. That's not true. It is my play. It's his production of my play. The play remains the thing. When you go by the text, and it's a good preface this time, it's about my mom who passed away recently. So I found myself in that Brad position in a way I never had before, but beyond having already written the play. So I ended up being in a position of having to try and, make certain decisions that I wasn't built for and ready for, but nonetheless, they presented themselves. But that play that I can't point to the bookshop because I don't know if it's in there, but it will be eventually, is different than what you would have seen last night, or you'll see tonight, or that sort of thing. It's what went into rehearsal, so it's already been changed fairly significantly in certain ways, and that's all been because of, not because it has to be a certain length or because it has, but because legitimately people have raised questions that needed answering. I'm just one mind, albeit a great one. It's on the list. I can only look at these things from so many perspectives and still kind of end up with this. People say, "Oh, I put on my director hat," or it's kind of bullshit, really. You're the same person. You may have various hats. I don't, because I have curly hair and they don't look great. But you do this thing and you go, this is who I am, and everything that's made me can look at this play in certain ways. And I'll try and see it from her perspective and this, but another set of eyes comes in and goes, "Oh, how come this is this way?" Or, and you go, "Oh, great question. Why didn't I answer that? Because I thought I already had figured this out." And sometimes you just haven't. What your answer was doesn't really hold up under scrutiny. And it only gets worse, exponentially by the number of people who come and see something. So I don't really want to live under the pretense that it's all great until I feel like we've just gone through every page and made it the best that it can be. Again, for now. So I never felt like I didn't feel like we landed everywhere. Would I have directed this differently? Of course I would have, because I'm a different person. But I think it's been, especially working on a thrust, it's really tricky, because you've got an audience on three sides, and David's moved everybody beautifully, and he's got great actors. And so I'm very lucky to have them taking that play and, bringing it to life. It's one thing to read it, it's another. Actors bring that special thing that only they have, each one. There's nobody like them. And so it's helped reveal the play in a number of ways. So there's been very few times, but there have been times where I've looked at a note and said, no, he referred to something that he still has a cut that he still wants. And it's true, because I looked at it once and I went, no, I need that. I need that to be there. He knows that's not true. It doesn't need to be there, because you could take it out and the play would not fall apart. but I want it there. So the need and want, they talk about that in the play actually, is the same as it's actually, and that is a line from the song How to Fight Loneliness. Jeff Tweedy wrote a lyric that said, "The first thing that you want is the last thing you'll ever need," and I always thought that was a great line. So it's am I being stubborn, or am I just am I seeing it from a different point of view? I think that's where we're at, and I'm still trying to look through his glasses and go, do we need it? I try and be as ego free in a world where I think you need ego. There's enough people in this business who want you to fail, try to bring you down. There's so many people who want to do what you do that you have to believe in what you do. You have to feel good about it. Somebody else will take care of the bad reviews for you. So you've got to kind of believe that you have something of quality and worthwhile, and that I'm going to take up your time. There's so many other things you could be doing. I'm asking you to give money and time. I've gotten much better as I've gotten older, like leaving movies. Harder to leave a play because it's live and there are people up there I respect, doing the thing, whether I like it or not. But movies now, they've got till I get like to the end of the popcorn bag. You know what I mean? I'm like 30 minutes in, 20. That's where I'm evaluating the movie and going, is the pleasure coming from the popcorn or from this movie? Because you already have my $20. Am I going to give you the 2 hours? And some people are just like so stubbornly like, I gave my money, I'm not leaving now. It's like, good idea. Yeah, why don't you get a whip and hit yourself at the same time? Rather than saying, I'll take that hour back and go do something else with it. So if that's the thing that we're going to do, is that I'm going to say, I'm going to ask you to come here and give me your money and come sit down, and I'm going to tell you a story. It better be the best story that I can tell you, right? Even if you don't love it in the end, it was the best one I had to give you that day. That's the, same thing of sitting around the campfire, how many hundreds of years ago, and, somebody did this in the tribe and somebody did this, and this person sat down and said, and you know what, for your entertainment tonight, because I didn't go kill the woolly mammoth, I'm going to tell you a story. And they're like, really? I killed the big thing and you're going to tell me a story? So yeah, I'm going to better make it a good story. We're still kind of working on that currency of I'm giving you something and you're giving me something. And I'm here to try and do that same thing. Just tell a good story.
We're over here.
We can't stand each other is the answer. It's been horrible.
That's really what
yeah.
That was a thinly veiled way of saying.
No, it's been awesome. I will
it.
say, like, Neil has been so open. And look, I was intimidated, it's like, oh my gosh. I started with these notes like, would it be okay? Is it all right if, and gradually it's been like what you hope any collaboration is. Doesn't matter. I think the thing is we both know we're trying to serve the play. We're both trying to serve, and so it's been fun and open, and the cast loves him, and he, I think, loves the cast, and I think there's a respect about okay, great, it doesn't work for you, fine, let's go in this direction. Okay, let's see what it sounds like tonight. Let's put that in. No, we were both wrong, or you're right, I'm wrong. Doesn't matter, right? It's like that works for the play. That beat now works. It didn't work before. It works for both of us. Good adjustment. It's like working on a carburetor, just with two people, Oh, wait, we fixed it. No, we're missing a.
I just want to thank you, Neil, so very much for giving this gift to us and to give it to Chuck Metton, who has shared it with all of us. I know that's something you gave to him to honor him. Thank you for giving it to Chuck.
No, my pleasure. He taught me a lot along the way, and it's nice to get a chance. When you meet someone. Like when you're in college, it's rarer that you get the chance to then see them, again and again when geography comes into your life and you move to different places, and a chance to collaborate on something. So it was a rare treat to be able to kind of close the circle and say, we got a chance to do this again. So it was nice.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on Act 2 between the fellow and Jody, Nate and Jody. It humanized him he isn't, no, money was never talked about in the whole play. We aren't really for sure what incentive he had financially for doing this or whatever. But he wanted, it seemed as though he didn't want to just do it to kill someone, to get that, or to someone who feels that euthanizing people is his job in life. He wanted to make her feel important, wanted to make her last time on earth that she was important and she would be remembered, and humanized him as well. I felt that second act was really important and did a lot of things, a lot of important work. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
There's one here.
Yeah, we've got one here first, and then we'll get to our last question. Will be over here.
Right there. Great.
Thank you. I saw the reading last summer, and I found the play very powerful. Thank you for it. I also appreciate the conversation this morning. And spoiler alert for everybody here, I wasn't going to mention it or ask, but I thought that Jody was pregnant. And I thought it was very disturbing because I got the part that she and Brad were really in love and that she wouldn't have done that to him. Anyway, that's my comment. My question is, we're going to see the play we're going to see the performance in September. Looking forward to that. And I was thinking about you all last night about 7:45 and wondering how you were feeling. And I'm wondering how you're feeling this morning.
7:45, I felt like I better use the restroom because it doesn't have an intermission. And then, I think it's hard. It's like I don't think any of us, I don't want to speak for Neil, but I'll speak for myself. I'm not yet in a place where it's like, yay, I'm so thrilled. I'm proud of the work, but, as Arthur Miller says in Death of a Salesman, attention must be paid. There's still work to do, and I don't know that I'll leave here tomorrow at 6:30 in the morning and be on a plane and feel like, wow, we got all of that one. It was the perfect, they're living, breathing thing. All of our hearts and those three actors, their souls are absolutely, totally invested in it, and we're tired and salty and, and that's really satisfying, but it's also lonely and, sort of exhilarating and, exciting. So I think I was feeling all those things last night. And at 4:15 in the morning, I was thinking, stop thinking about that scene. It's going to be okay. Go back to sleep,
Yeah, if anything, the only thing I walk away with tomorrow early as well is that sort of that very happy with the work, and yet I could tinker forever. If you would just let me, I would go in there every day and just, it's like finding a spot on the floor, and then suddenly you look at everything, and then you're looking at the paint in the room, and then I could sit there and just keep buffing forever, just tweak that. Let's just try that one word the other way. And I love that. That's the part of the process that you get to do. I also work in film and television, and when you finish a scene and you walk away, that's done. That's it. It's you bank that thing, and you never get to go back, and you put some music on it and you edit it and you do this, but that's it. It's done. And here, people, I love finding actors who, it's not, there are those actors who, there's those actors where the work never changes. From the audition, what you saw in the audition room is exactly what you're going to get. Then there are those actors who, as soon as the reviews are in, the work is done. They're set. It's like people have spoken about the work now, and now I'm going to give every audience that same show, which is fair, which is, there should be a quality of that. And then there are those actors who continue to search, and it grows every night. And sometimes 2 days from the end, I've run into actors who are like, I think I just figured something out. I think I found a new way to say that phrase. And I admire that they never give up. Every night is a new, not just a new audience, but it's they are trying to experience it for the first time each time. That every time that they they go out there, it's, I have to live this as if I've never heard these words and I've never experienced these moments. And there are a rarer set, I think, that are able to do that. And I feel the same way. That's why I can go watch it every night and find something else to work on or keep thinking about. But please don't.
Please don't.
Don't do that.
Hi. Thanks. I watched it last night. I really enjoyed it. I have a comment and a question. One of the sort of cultural contributions I see in this play is that it talks about a subject that people don't talk about and don't want to talk about, and is sort of underaddressed in general in society and law. And what I thought was interesting was that you're in the dialogue itself reflects that, I thought, in the sense that in that first section, they're really struggling to find words to have a conversation about what they need to talk about. And that kind of halting form of dialogue and inarticulateness, for lack of a better word, continues until I think towards the end. And so I thought that was sort of an interesting commentary on how difficult it is to address the subject. But what I thought was also interesting was the character of Tate as being, to me, the more emotionally complex and intelligent of the three. And that was because he had been through something similar. But as he said at the beginning, it was different, but similar. And so what it's, as an audience going through the play, you're experiencing the play, you're somehow having this experience of it that gives you maybe some language or emotional intelligence to confront the issues in normal life. But what I thought was also, because of that, that sort of inarticulateness of the subject, what I thought was really interesting was how these emotional dynamics that had to fill that void. And it was almost like you were giving a language to emotion. It wasn't the words we were watching so much, it was just emotional dynamic, because so many things, like in the dialogue between Jody and Tate, he would just sort of stop and say, I get it. And without her finishing her sentences or being unable to finish the sentences. And so so they're understanding each other without really communicating. So I just sort of wonder, like, as a process for the actors, developing that sort of emotional intelligence and telepathy among each other to create that emotional tension that also has to involve the audience so much. Like, how do they go about that? Thanks.
Well, the blueprint is there in the text, right? So the way I look at it is we have to, I think
perfect answer, by the way.
Yes, I knew you'd like that. I'm just trying to get that last cut in. The blueprint's there, right? So then it's about what isn't there that we need to fill in terms of backstory, right? What happens before that doorbell rings or before she comes on the stage with a plate of shrimp? How long have you had this discussion? How long has Brad been against it? When did you decide last night when did Brad decide, all right, I'm on board, let's bring him over? And then how does that change his life? What does he get confronted with in the room when he's there to say, wait a second, I don't feel the same way right now? So you have to fill in all of this relationship that doesn't exist, that we can't see. And then the script provides what I look at, and every director is different, right? And because I'm an actor, I understand some of it from that side. I'm big into a text looking like music. I understand music on the page. And so, like, orchestration is a big part of it. Composition of what the stage looks like, and orchestration of language is big for me. I learned that here. I learned that from my time as an intern here, from those big plays across, or now over here and in the Randall. And so this is one of the reasons we wanted to do this play, is because Neil's writing has, I hope this doesn't offend you, but this incredible classical structure met with an absolute contemporary understanding of how people actually speak now and function. And he writes in a way that is visual. So there are slashes across the page where characters need to overlap and intersect each other. That is murder to rehearse, but boy, is the effect phenomenal when you find the rhythm of it, right? So actors want to take beats. He's written beats. So I say there's no beat until he gives you a beat. And a beat is not a pause. That's a pause. That's a beat. So the difference in the orchestration will ram you right into the emotional place if you understand the structure of the language. Technically, it will do that. And then we got to fill out. But I'm a believer in when you feel the kinesthetic sense of the technical rhythm, you find the vacuum that allows the emotion to come through, if this makes sense. And so that's kind of how we, all along the way, having to have actors memorize their lines and then fill out that emotional life and understand the given circumstances. And so that's sort of how we arrive at it. Further thoughts?
Well, these gentlemen need to get to rehearsal, so let's give them the applause they deserve. We will continue here in a minute on, we have 3 more plays to talk about, Shakespeare in Love, Midsummer, and Treasure Island. And we mentioned Hell on Wheels, and it is streamable on Netflix. All 5 seasons, and season 1 of Van Helsing is also streamable to prepare for season 2. And How to Fight Loneliness will be here till October. So thank you very much.